Anyway, as Dominic said, my name is Dan Aungst. I'm the president and founder of Road to Purity. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of get our Blessed Mother involved when I start speaking. So let's say a quick Hail Mary. So, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Okay. As I said, president and founder of Road to Purity. Road to Purity's mission is awareness, education, and healing in the area of pornography and sex addiction. I'm a certified addiction counselor, and as Dominic said, I'm a recovering sex addict. I was addicted for over 30 years, and I've been in recovery for about 12. Today's talk is the battle for purity. It's essentially kind of my testimony, along with the information and story of how we became about doing this work and why I'm here. What I want to do is to start with, just to kind of set the stage. I'm going to share page 1 of the intro of my book, From One Addict to Another. It's kind of set where we start. It was roughly 8 years after my affair, and in some way things with my wife had gotten back to normal. Yet there was very little intimacy, and she had seemed to resent everything I did. There was still anger and pain over what had happened. Time had moved on, but we never completely dealt with my actions. And now it was starting again. I'd fallen back into looking at pornography and acting out. In the recent years and months, it had become more and more frequent. To this point, I've been able to withstand going any further than this, but then one day I drove by a massage parlor and stopped. I went in, and let's just say I experienced more than a massage. Afterward, I felt so disgusted with myself, which was unusual compared to the way I used to feel after acting out sexually. This time, I somehow recognized that my behavior wasn't actually about sex. Rather, I knew that something was there seeking to fill a void that had never been filled by this behavior. I felt so horrible that I drove immediately to a church looking for a priest to hear my confession. I was in a panic and knew that I had to do this right now. I went to our usual church, but no one was available. So I drove from church to church until I found a priest who could hear my confession. After I'd finished, I told myself, this was over, I can't do this again. Several months later, my wife learned that she had a sexually transmitted disease, evidence that I had strayed from our marriage yet again. She became completely unglued, and this time was talking divorce. My world was collapsing around me. I knew that Roxanne was justified in every emotion she had and whatever action she took. What I couldn't believe was that I had done this again. I finally started to realize that maybe I have a problem. Unfortunately, this is not an uncommon story. As you can see from my story in my journey, that there was a lot more than porn involved. How did this happen? How did I get here? And then after all this, how did redemption happen? Like I told you, I was a recovering sex addict. Actually, what I came to realize is that I was a porn, sex, and love addict. My earliest memory of issues along this line were about 6 or 7 years old, that I had created an imaginary female friend. She made me feel wanted and valued, fulfilled the emptiness that I didn't even know was there. Had an influence that was really a disordered coping mechanism, and later found out that it was a spiritual disorder as well. She grew throughout my life and even into my marriage, always fulfilling the emptiness and helping me cope with a very negative self-image. While, of course, at that early age, it wasn't sexual, it was something that fulfilled a need for affirmation, for attention, for love, and that's why part of what I say is a love addict. The ending result really was that it prevented me from achieving true healing from my woundedness, because it gave me a coping mechanism, so I didn't need to seek other healing at that time. Now, really, I had a pretty normal childhood. You'd think with a lot of these things in my history that I'd been abused, and I see so much of that in people that I see and clients that I work with. But there was no abuse. I had both parents, no divorce. I did not have a broken home. But somehow I always felt that I was unloved or unwanted. I believed that my mother loved me because she was supposed to, not because I was worthy of it, not because she chose to, but she was supposed to. And that's just what I believe. That's what I grew up with. Now, at the age of 10, for me, I had my first exposure to porn. It was some neighborhood kids, some magazines. It was very attractive. Didn't really know what to do with the emotions. Didn't really think about it at that time, but just something stirred within me. It was very enticing and attractive, like I say. That went through my school years and so forth, and then in college, I got into VHS videos. Now that'll show a little bit of my age, VHS videos. Usually I tell when there's younger kids in the audience to ask their parents what those are. But that's kind of where I started getting into some of the movies at that point. I had no self-confidence then. My first girlfriend was at 19. I didn't even date before then. Porn, though, was a perfect girlfriend. I was clearly addicted by then, and porn was my escape. Porn would never reject me. So it was what I turned to. Now, shortly after college, internet was invented. Now, same story with some of the the VHS stuff. It's ask your parents if you don't know what that is, or when it was invented, that it wasn't always around. So, but I started with dial-up modems. And today, a dial-up modem would be a better deterrent than the filters they have on the devices now. So that was just something that was really difficult then, but we didn't know any different. But that gives a little age and history on that kind of stuff. Now, I got married at around 25 years old. And I really thought that when I got married, it would get better. I got married, I could, have all the sex I wanted, so they say, and things would be better. It actually got worse. One of the problems, when you get married is you get very close and intimate with another person. They know all of your faults. So suddenly, rather than just saying, oh, I can be married and have lots of sex, now I'm with this person who knows everything that's wrong with me. So it actually gets worse, and that's common. Another issue with that is that both of us were broken, and as I know now, pretty much everybody is broken to some level, but we both brought that brokenness into the marriage, which is typical, and that created its own set of problems. What happens also with me, and this happens in general, is porn is progressive in many cases. Now, tomorrow's talk, I talk a lot more about that, but in this case, it was evidenced in my behavior. I was, internet, like I said, magazines, the VHS videos, and so forth. I got to the point to where I needed a physical connection. I advanced into massage parlors, affairs, prostitution. I was out of control. Basically, the train wreck, as I call it, was starting. Now, for me, at this point, I was a Catholic convert, and just to kind of exhibit where I was, there were times where I would set up a time to go see a prostitute. And I would know that after having done this, if I would die before I made it to confession, I would go to hell. I knew that, no question. But I would do it anyway. I was playing Russian roulette with my soul. That is the true meaning of hopeless and helplessness, and that's where this addiction can go. And that's where it happens for so many, and that's where I went with it. The self-loathing, the self-hatred, the emptiness was overwhelming. I personally was never suicidal, but I have a deep understanding for those who are. I've known people who have committed suicide over this. I mean, the sexual extracurricular activities both kept me safe from my pain that I was trying to escape, as well as serving a coping mechanism, but it also fueled making it deeper and worse at the same time. So it was basically a double-edged sword. It helped, but it got worse. Downward spiral. The self-worth issues and emotionally counterproductive sexual sin were just off the charts. Now, like I said, during that one point, I was a Catholic convert, so I had become Catholic. In the middle of the whole this program, like I said, I was converted to Catholicism, but I went through the motions. I just did the classes, went through the Easter vigil, did all that, and it really didn't mean anything to me at the time. But yet, God's working on me, and I had no clue. But He's not going to waste anything, as they say. I couldn't see the graces that God was bestowing on me at this time. But it wasn't time yet for me to see it. The train wreck wasn't finished, as it were. At the peak of my addiction a few years later, as if the prostitution story wasn't the peak, I had an affair with a member of the woman in my company that I had. She gave me all the right emotional strokes. I latched onto it very hard. I was so hungry to be accepted and wanted that anybody that gave me that, I just, jumped at it. I moved out, told my wife that I didn't love her anymore and I wanted out. It literally crushed her. I had no idea the true damage that was caused, not yet known at that point. But amazingly, she didn't give up. She fought for me. She's one of the strongest women and most faithful women that I know. She wouldn't agree with that, but if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here today. I owe her my life. A few months into the affair, I was full steam ahead. It was all about me and what I wanted. And that's the way this always works. It's always complete narcissism. It's what I want, I'm taking for me, and that's where pornography is, and that's where it leads. But God had different ideas. He knew what was happening for me later. There's a period of time that I'm going to refer to. There's like a 1 week window where a lot happened. And during this week, He revealed Himself in ways that I still can't believe. I know it was the resulting of the prayer from Roxanne and our friends and just other people trying to pray for us and what I was doing in our marriage. During this same week, what was coming up on that weekend, there was a men's retreat, gathering of men, if any of you know of it. And our friends were going. They were asking me, I should go. And I said, no, I'm not going. I don't want to go to that. I know what I want, and I'm going to stay in what I'm doing. And that was coming up on that weekend, Friday evening, and here along about, I think it was Thursday of that week, moving forward, I knew what I wanted. Now, in my company, there's this other woman. Her name's Mary. We all regarded her as kind of a crackpot. She was what a lot of people refer to as these overzealous Catholics, that she has visions and all these kinds of things. And it's like, now, I respect that. Then, she was nuts, okay? But she came to me and talked to Tracy, the woman that I was having an affair with, and said that she had some visions that there were some bad things that were going to happen to our kids, and that my company was under a dark cloud and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, okay, Mary, yeah, we just kind of disregarded it at the time. Just thought, because the way we thought she was. But there was something underlying to it that was still kind of fearful. So Tracy was scared. So we left kind of for lunch, went to her apartment, and talked about it a little bit. And this is where it really gets strange. We actually prayed together, okay? We're having an illicit relationship, and we're praying. God's got his humor. At that point, I wanted this, we both wanted this, I wanted this to work so bad that I prayed and told God that I would do anything you want. Just make this happen. He ignored the second part. But I said, I'll do anything you want, whatever you want. I basically surrendered the whole thing to him, gave him a blank check. You give God a blank check, you better hold on for the ride. We started driving back to the office, from our lunch. I had this strange, real faint image of a stop sign in front of me. Didn't understand it. I could just see it. It was just there. Just this faint, vague stop sign image. Got back to my office, walked in, basically was met by my office manager, who was supportive of everything up until that point. She was like, well, if you're not happy at home, you need to do what you got to do, kind of thing. She was supportive of everything. But suddenly, I'm walking in, and she meets me. She follows into my office, and she says, I don't know why, but suddenly, in the last hour, I got this overwhelming feeling that I have to tell you that you can't do this anymore. Now, it was about an hour before that we prayed, and I gave God the blank check, okay? And she's just like, 180 degrees, you can't do this anymore. Okay. That was kind of strange, just suddenly to say that. Okay, thanks for sharing. As she's leaving my office, Dana, one of my other employees, comes in, who she's on our production team. She's one of these people. There's a couple of managers between she and I, but she comes right in my office. She's shaking, she's scared. She says, I have to say something and I don't want to get fired, but you have to stop what you're doing. What drove her to come in and say that to me? And I said, okay, that's fine. That's fine. You're not getting fired. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Go ahead and go. I just thought that was strange. Now, Mary, the crackpot, I feel bad calling her that now, but that's what we looked at her then.
Did you have children, just real quick?
Yes, I did. Yes, and Tracy did. So, and that's why she said your children, something's going to happen bad with your children. And so Mary came in, and she said, something is happening. Your decision that you make will affect the rest of your life. I mean, who is she to know that something is happening? But something was happening. The few little weird incidences that are happening, and she says something is happening, and I'm suddenly starting to think, is there something here that you know? So, okay. Immediately follows, Tracy comes into my office crying. She says, I'm scared it's all falling apart. Well, it kind of is, but I wasn't going there. All this time, this stop sign is just getting stronger. Just this image, this strange vision, image, whatever, and I didn't explain it, didn't know what it was. But at this point, it was almost blocking my vision. It was the weirdest thing. But at this point, I knew what I had to do. All these events, all these people that came in, all this stuff came in, was in an hour or less period of time. Just boom, boom, boom. And I'm thinking, but I knew suddenly what I had to do. But it was hard. It was like, how am I going to do this? So I called my wife, asked her, said, can I come home and we can talk? And she said, yeah. So I came home, we talked, shared with her kind of what happened, and in talking to her, decided that I was going to end the affair. So I ended it that evening. That was like late Thursday night. All this stuff happened from lunch Thursday on. Now, remember, this retreat coming up this weekend that I'm not going to. But all my friends that are still going to this thing are, were trying to get me to go. One friend of mine in particular, Paul, had told me before, said, if you want to just come, just let me know, even at the last minute. I'll drive. We don't even have to talk about anything. Just let me know. So I decided, okay, mid-Friday, all right, I'll go. So I called Paul about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, said, okay, I'll go. Now, I wasn't signed up. I hadn't paid. They didn't have my name. They weren't expecting me, nothing. We left about 4 o'clock. It was a drive from Denver to Estes Park, hour and a half drive or so. That evening, I'm walking around. We have our evening talks, breakout sessions, and whatnot. And we're walking around, and people, there's a couple hundred guys there. Monsignor Ken Leone, if you happen to know him, walks. He sees my name badge. He goes, Dan Aungst, I've been looking all over for you. Okay. Hands me this envelope and says, God told me to give you this. I'm not even supposed to be there, and here's an envelope with my name on it. I open the envelope, and there's this letter inside. The letter says, Dan, there is so much I would like to tell you, if only there were enough time. You are entering a very difficult time, but it is also a time where you're going to learn a lot about Roxanne, about yourself, and about me and my love for you. Please be patient with yourself. This is not going to go away overnight. The wounds are deep, but not fatal. There's much healing that needs to take place for your wife, for your friends, for yourself, and for our relationship. The important thing is, though, that our relationship has begun. Let's go through this together. Give me all of your hurt and your resentment and your pain. I can take it. And I promise I will continue to love you. There are big plans for you. If only you knew everything that was still to come. It is so important to begin this healing process. I will be here to help you. Please lean on me and use me. I will give you the strength and courage when you have nothing left. You will discover that true strength comes from humility and grace. And power, true strength comes from humility, and power comes from grace. I will be here to help you, but the work is up to you. Your friend Jesus. I about fell on the floor. My priest was gone. I didn't know what to do. How did I get to? I wasn't even supposed to be here. Where did this come from? And oddly enough, my name, Dan, is spelled with 2 N's. Roxanne's name is spelled with 1 N. They're both spelled correctly in the letter. I still don't know where this letter, today, I don't know where this letter came from. I mean, obviously God, but I mean, he didn't sit at the computer and type it, so I don't know, I don't know what happened. I mean, like I said, I was not registered. I wasn't supposed to be there. No, I mean, it was a couple hours before we left that I told my friend I'm coming. And there was no time for any of this to happen. Now, needless to say, okay, I had a great retreat the rest of the time. Had a good confession at the retreat, so forth. Went home Sunday, and I proceeded like all is fine. Dumbass. Okay? I'm not done yet. Remember the opening of the story, okay? Everything I just told you was before this event in the book that I opened with. Fast forward 8 years later, it's all happening again. And if that wasn't enough, now the real journey begins. As I said in the opening, she said she was looking for a divorce, but at this point. Met with the priest. Now, it happened to be this priest that I met at the retreat that gave me the letter. Tell me that's not a coincidence. Or God incidence, as they say. Met with that priest. He says to us, primarily to Roxanne, he says, give me 2 months with him. He got me into a men's integrity group that he was running, that he had started with somebody else at that parish. Started going there. Now I went there the first week, and the guys were in a small group, and they were listening to a GK or Christopher West sexual purity audio that he'd done. It was 3 CD set, and they were on the 3rd CD. It was very intriguing. I was very interested in it, and I wanted to know more. So I bought his talk on Amazon and got it a few days later, and proceeded to, start it and listen to it myself. 10 minutes into the first CD I'm listening to, I'm alone, home office, whatever. He gives a quote by G.K. Chesterton. It says, every man who stands at the doorstep of a brothel is looking for God. I had to pause the CD. I was crying so hard. For the last 40 years, that's what I was looking for. But I didn't know it. I had no clue. But at that moment, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I think that moment opened the door for healing. Now, everything didn't just go away, obviously, but it started. That's when it started for me. Over the next couple of years, I learned a lot about myself. We did more groups. I actually started another group, a spin-off of that one. Received a lot of healing through my brothers in Christ, where you get in the small groups. Came to know Jesus Christ for real, not just the name of who he was and what the story was, because I became Catholic. I knew him. Healed a lot of my past, did counseling. So many things happened through that point. Then, a couple years into the recovery, I had this overpowering feeling that God wants me to do something. I didn't know what. Just wants me to do something. It's one of the things when you get something and you want to give back, but you don't know what, and that was happening, but I just couldn't know how to explain it. So I began searching, looking for what should I do? How could I do something? People kept telling me in these groups, because I had grown enough to where I was sharing with other people and I was helping some other people with what they were doing. People kept saying, "Oh, you should write a book." I don't even like to read. When am I going to write a book? Please. And plus I'm thinking, every other book I've looked at on this topic, they're written by PhDs, they're written by counselors who've had 1,000 clients. They're experts. They know all this stuff. What do I know? I'm going to write a book. Come on. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. And then suddenly I'm emailing a friend of mine, talking about this, and it's something I think I want to do something, but I don't know what. I'm trying to figure out what. People keep telling me I should write a book, and I'm typing this out. I said, I don't know anything. The only thing I know is an experience of a small group is sharing from one addict to another, which you do in a small group. And as I type this out from one addict to another, it just, this hot liquid just poured over me. It was just the Holy Spirit. That's it. That's what I have to say. And that's the name of the book. From one addict to another. So I don't know what to do. So I finished off the email and sent it off. And I'm sitting here in my office, again, emotional, crying. I don't know what to do with this. What am I supposed to do? I can't do this. Inside, clear as day, I heard this voice. I need you to do this for me. I knew what it was, but I didn't want to hear it. And it's like, I can't do this. I don't know. I need you to do this for me. But I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this, whatever. I'll be here to help you. And I'm sitting here shaking. I don't know what to do. How am I going to write a book? I don't like to read. I can't count my story. And I started thinking about books on Amazon. You do that first look and you start seeing the parts of the book and you can see this stuff. People are going to read part of my book and they don't even know me and the story's going to be out there. And I'm just kind of like coming unglued and I'm thinking, well, no, wait a minute. People use like a pen name? A fake name or something when they write a book under, because they hide it. I'm thinking that, the same voice, I need you to own it. I knew he was right, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And that little, whatever you want to call it, ended. I'm kind of shaken, whatever. I tell Roxanne about what happened. And she goes, well, maybe you should. What? You want me to write a story about everything I did and what I did to you and all this kind of stuff and you're involved? Well, if that's what God's asking you to do. Now, okay, so I spent the next year going to priests and spiritual directors, sharing this story, looking for somebody to tell me that God doesn't talk to people anymore. That's not what, no. That just didn't really happen. Looking for somebody to give me an excuse not to do this. Then one day we're in this little class with this priest that Father John Riley, if you happen to know who he is, the Augustine Institute. We're taking this class on St. Therese. So he's talking about mysticism and all her experiences with Jesus and conversations and visions and whatever. And I said, this guy knows this stuff. He'll know that this is crap. I'll go talk to him. So I set up an appointment. I went and go talk to him and tell him the story. And he goes, so what do you need from me? Well, I don't know. I just want to know if this isn't right. I've talked to a dozen different people, and he goes, well, there's your first mistake. You talk to 10, 12 different people. You're going to get 10 different answers. Well, no, they're all telling me the same thing, that this sounds like something I need to do. And he leans over and goes, so what are you talking to me for? Okay. So anyway, no, we finished that. That was ended. Yeah, right. But no, she's gone. So anyway, I need to write this book. No, now granted, remember this was 8 years, kind of beyond this. Anyway, so.
Okay, because you said that she said something about your children.
Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah. Well, what is strange, when I came back home after that affair, whatever. It was a few weeks later. My daughter, who was like 10 years old at the time, she just out of the blue, Daddy, I'm glad you finally came to your senses. Out of the mouth of babes, right? wow.
So do you think your affair was a secret, that you were hiding it and nobody knew?
No, but still, I mean, for her to say that,
Yeah.
you know, it was like, not that it was a secret, but that she didn't know how bad or stupid it was, you know? But anyway, so I went and talked to, one more spiritual director that I knew, and about, you know, the idea of the book. And my experience with spiritual directors is, well, did you pray on this? You know, what is God moving you to do? What did you sense? Or what did you know, it's kind of, they guide you through that way, whatever. And we're having that conversation in that way a little bit. Suddenly, out of the blue, he breaks character and says, well, here's what you need to do. You need to go spend an hour in adoration and 2 hours writing, and do that for 5 days, and you'll have your answer. I mean, spiritual directors don't just say, don't do this. They're asking you to pray on stuff and discern it and whatever. Go do this. Wow. Okay. That came up from some reason, somewhere for some reason. So I did. So I went to our local church, Adoration Chapel, walked in, went way to the back, just sat down at the back. I'm, you know, kind of inconspicuous. I'm going to sit here. Sat there about 45 minutes, nothing. Then it kind of dawned on me, maybe I should ask. Jesus, what do you want me to do? Same voice that I'd heard before about, I want you to come closer. Well, I want you to come closer. I knew he wanted me to come right up in front of him, right at his feet, and kneel. There's like a dozen people in this chapel. I'm sitting in the back. If I just get up, walk right in the front, and kneel, I'm a little soft. I mean, this is weird. People are going to say, what is this guy? Can I do that? I'm saying, what? In the next 60 seconds, 9 of the 12 people got up and just left. They just left. And now I'm sitting there, there's only 3 people. Okay, so I got up and did it. What do you want me to do? I want you to write about your pain and the pain you caused others. I'm sitting here thinking, you couldn't pick something easier? I mean, that was the first thing to start. Okay, well, all right. And then I got a distinct feeling after he said that, okay, it's done, you can go. So I left. I went out and started writing, doing what I could. Now, in the 8 months or so, whatever it took me to write the book, that was the last chapter I finished, because that was the hardest chapter to write. I finished the book, published it, put it out there. I actually went to adoration, sat and told God, I said, God, I did what you said. I finished the book. I'm done. That same voice. All right, now it's time to get started. Excuse me? Now I start? I just finished. Now it's time to get started. I didn't know what that meant. So I just kept praying, what do you want? What am I supposed to do? What do you want me to do? And while it wasn't super specific all the time, I just moved forward with what I felt moved to do, little by little by little by little. And somehow 6 years later, I have Road to Purity, nonprofit founded. I've written 5 books. Became a certified addiction counselor. I've written materials for priests to help in the confessionals. I have 3 imprimaturs on various pieces. For the last 5 years, I've been doing like one-day classes at St. John Vianney Seminary with the seminarians, the graduating seminarians. I'm teaching them how to address sexual sin in the confessional, because 3 Hail Marys and an Our Father is not going to keep the guy from coming back. I talk to them about what will from a penitent side. I developed the Restoring God's Foundation sexual integrity program, a Catholic one, got an imprimatur on that program. I run that program at St. John Vianney. There's dozens of churches nationwide that are using it. I created it to be an online independent study version as well. There's hundreds of students using that. I write for Covenant Eyes. I've spoken to thousands of people at conferences, and this just kind of happened. Now it's time to get started. At this point now, I've actually been full-time in this ministry for almost 3 years. I basically committed myself, my life, to sharing this story, sharing with other people, trying to create awareness, helping other people through healing to get through this. Because I know the pain they're in, and I can help them get out. I'm basically here to I tell you that the feelings of helplessness, self-hatred, abandonment, loneliness, all don't have to exist. Anybody that's involved in this, you are not alone. And if you personally don't battle this behavior, someone you know does. A few things I just want to mention before I close with another story. I'm doing 3 more talks this week, plus a workshop that you probably have the schedules for. There's several of them, one each day. We have a table out here with lots of books, materials, recovery materials. We have prayer cards that we sell that are kind of a general appeal. They help us raise money too for the program. We're a nonprofit organization. In a nutshell, that means that we don't have any money and we need some. That's what nonprofit means. But one of the catalysts, I guess you would say, for the work that I'm doing and the direction of what I'm doing is something I didn't used to tell people, because it was another one of those things that I thought people are going to think I'm nuts. But I had it in a talk a while ago and rehearsed it with my kids. And they said, you have to say this. My kids are, you keep asking about my kids, they're fully on board with what I'm doing now. They've read my book. Now they're 26 and 34. So, it's been a while. But they're fully on board and say they're proud of me and for what I'm doing. But anyway, what happened is, it's about 3 years ago. One of those things, the middle of the night, where you're kind of sleeping, but you're not really sleeping, half awake. You get the gust of twilight or something they call it. I'm laying there in bed, just in that state. And this image appears in front of me of myself standing at this canyon, which is like infinitely bigger than the Grand Canyon. But virtually all of humanity is down inside, just packed in like sardines. They can't move. And they're all engulfed in some type of sexual sin, whether it's pornography, homosexuality, adultery, everything. They're just packed in and engulfed in that. There's this overwhelming, profound sense of abandonment, alonement, self-hatred, everything. And I'm feeling this, and it's like, I've been there, and I can feel this down there. And Jesus is standing at my side. He puts his hand on my shoulder. And he goes, it doesn't have to be like this. I need you to tell them for me. And it just goes away. I got up, went in the bathroom, and I think I cried for an hour. But that's what I'm doing. And that's what I live now. Everything I do, every program I write, every article I write, every thing that I'm doing, for other people in this ministry, I stop and I ask, am I telling them? And that's what I choose to move forward with. If I'm telling them, yes. If this isn't telling them, then I don't do it. It's not part of the ministry. But that was something that just changed me, as if the rest didn't, right? But anyway, that's the story.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys.